Beyond the rugged fjords of ancient Scandinavia, where the northern lights dance across the velvet sky, a saga whispers through the pines. In this mystical realm, steeped in the twilight of legends, the tale of the Vikings begins. These warriors and explorers, emerging from their harsh, beautiful homeland, were destined to etch their names across the pages of history. As night descends upon the Norse lands, the air vibrates with the echoes of ancient lore. Here, in the flickering glow of the hearth, stories unfold of fierce Norsemen, their long ships cleaving through the icy waters with a hunger for discovery and conquest. From the 9th to the 11th centuries, their voyages carried them far beyond their native shores. From the frozen expanse of Greenland to the unknown wilds of North America. In the whispered tales, carried through the winds of time, these seafaring adventurers are often cast as indomitable raiders, their spirit unyielding, their hearts aflame with the pursuit of glory and riches. Their legacy, a tapestry of battle and bravery, adventure and exploration, is woven into the very fabric of the North. In their wake, they left a profound enigma, a legacy that intertwines the threads of myth and reality into an eternal saga that resonates through the ages. In the nascent whisper of the cosmos, where existence itself was yet a mere shadow, two realms emerged from the silent void. Felheim, a domain shrouded in eternal fog, and Muspel, a realm ablaze with unquenchable fire. Between these stark contrasts of frost and flame lay Ginnungagap, a yawning abyss where their fierce clash gave birth to Ymir, the first of the frost giants. This momentous event marked the beginning of an ageless conflict, woven into the very essence of creation. From the misty vales of Felheim and the fiery breath of Muspel, the spark of life ignited. Aud Umla, a celestial cow of boundless nourishment, nurtured Ymir and birthed Buri, a deity of beginnings. Thus began the lineage of giants and gods, a pantheon destined to shape the fate of all realms. In this tumultuous cradle of existence, the saga of Bor and his valiant sons, Odin, Vili, and Ve unfolded. Their epic struggle against Ymir, a titan of primordial frost, reshaped the universe. Ymir's colossal form, vanquished in cosmic combat, gave rise to the world. His flesh molded into the earth, his bones the towering mountains, his blood the vast seas. From the earth sprang the dwarfs, stalwart and industrious, who toiled beneath the sky. Once Ymir's skull, upheld at each corner by the dwarfs Nordri, Sudri, Austri, and Westri. Ymir's lustrous hair transformed into the verdant trees and bushes, while his brow became the formidable walls that sheltered the gods and enclosed Midgard, the bastion of humanity. Yet, from the aftermath of Ymir's fall, one giant, Bergelmir, endured. He fled to the far reaches of the universe, forging Jotunheim, a new realm for giants, a testament to the unending cycle of creation and destruction. The gods, in their unceasing labor, crafted the heavens from Ymir's remains. His brains scattered across the sky formed the brooding clouds, while Surtur's fiery sparks were harnessed to create the stars. The sun and moon resplendent in their golden chariots, and drawn by the noble steeds, Arvakar and Alsvin embarked upon their eternal voyage across the sky, heralding the rhythm of day and night. Thus was born the grand narrative of the world, a saga of celestial origins and enduring legacies, where the whispers of the gods and the echoes of giants resonate across the boundless expanse of time and space. In the early light of a world freshly carved from the chaos of creation, Odin, the All-Father and Supreme Deity, traversed the new earth with his brethren, Honir and Loki. They roamed under the vast canopy formed by Ymir's transformed essence, now the oceans and skies, reveling in the majesty of their handiwork. Yet, in this serene landscape, a profound silence lingered, an emptiness yearning for the breath of life. Wandering along the ocean's edge, where the waves whispered secrets to the shore, the gods chanced upon 2 pieces of driftwood, gifts of the sea, shaped by time and tide. A divine spark flickered within them, igniting a vision of profound creativity. Honir, casting his shadow upon one, bestowed it upon the outline of humanity, while Loki, with his mischievous charm, animated the other, making it pirouette in the golden sunlight. Then came Odin's turn, his breath carrying the essence of divinity, to breathe life into the inert wood. As his breath touched the first piece, its rough bark receded, revealing a woman, her form still and serene, radiant with untapped potential. Turning to the second, Odin's exhalation wrought a similar transformation, unveiling a man equally poised on the brink of life. From Odin's gift, these wooden figures awakened to a newfound existence. Loki, the shapeshifter, now imbued the woman with the vibrancy of youth, the clarity of understanding, and the richness of the senses. She arose, a living embodiment of their divine craft, her eyes alight with wonder. Loki then bestowed upon the man the vigor of life and the same depth of perception and sensation, enabling him to rise and stand beside his companion. Honir, completing their transformation, granted them the power of speech, the final flourish to their humanity. With this, the very first humans, their hands intertwined, stepped forward into the uncharted world, embarking on a journey destined to be woven into the annals of time. Odin, in his commanding voice, named them Ash and Elm, a tribute to their origins from the driftwood. He draped his cloak over Elm, a symbol of protection and care, entrusting her to Ash's guardianship, a bond believed by the Vikings to be eternal, spanning the river of time. Asgard, revered as the enclosure of the gods and ruled by Odin, stood majestically above the clouds on Yggdrasil, a realm of unparalleled peace and splendor, overlooking Midgard. Its most glorious palace, Gladsheim, housed the golden thrones of the 12 principal deities, radiating like the sun itself. Vingoth, another resplendent palace, dedicated to the goddesses, reflected Asgard's golden era. Here, In halls of gold, divine laws were decreed, ensuring eternal harmony. A forge, central to Asgard's grandeur, crafted tools and weapons for its magnificent constructions, while the breathtaking Bifrost, or Rainbow Bridge, arched over Midgard, a dazzling spectacle. Idavale, the heart of Asgard, was a lush landscape of rolling hills and palaces, adorned with gold, silver, and sparkling gems. The Aesir, gods of noble spirit, dwelled here, central to the myriad legends. Yet the Vanir from Vanaheim also played their part in this celestial narrative. Past conflicts between these divine families led to a unity strengthened by exchanged hostages, symbolizing a profound sacrifice and the harmonious coexistence of these two godly lineages. Yggdrasil, the world ash, soars as an eternal guardian of the cosmos, its immense branches embracing all 9 realms, binding them in a network of life and destiny. At the core of this majestic tree, the Norns, 3 powerful sisters, known as the Fates, meticulously tend to its roots, each drawing life from 3 mystical wells. One root descends into Asgard, the divine realm of the gods, nourished by the well of Weird, named after the eldest of the Norns. Another root reaches into the frosty realm of Jotunheim, home to the frost giants, where it draws sustenance from the well of Mimir, a god whose wisdom endures in his surviving head, kept alive by enchanted herbs and waters. The third root ventures into Vilheim, enduring hardships near Vergelmir, a fountain of black water that exudes the aroma of decay. Here, the fearsome dragon Nithog relentlessly gnaws at the root, a threat potent enough to wither any other tree. Yggdrasil stands unwavering, a timeless beacon linking each world and facilitating communication across realms. Its name, Steed of Odin, hints at dark undertones, entwined with a story of sacrifice and discovery. In his quest for the secrets of ruins, the ancient symbols of wisdom and power, Odin underwent a grueling sacrifice. He hung himself from Yggdrasil's bow, enduring 9 excruciating days and nights, his anguish cries resounding across the realms. This ordeal, though filled with agony, granted Odin unparalleled mastery over the magical ruins, securing his position as the sole bearer of this profound knowledge. His newfound wisdom, shared among his allies, elevated his status to that of a legend. Odin's sovereignty extended across the 9 realms, from the celestial heights of Asgard to the netherworld of Hel. between these extremes were the domains of Vanir in Vanaheim, the mortal realm of Midgard, the lands of the light and dark elves, dwarfs, frost and hill giants, and the fiery giants of Muspel. Asgard, the most illustrious of these worlds, is the stage upon which our story unfolds. A realm of gods and legends, the heart of ancient tales. In the golden age of Asgard, Odin reigned at the head of the 9 worlds of Yggdrasil. He was a fair man, well liked by all, and his kingdom of Asgard was a magnificent place, where time stood still, and youth and the pleasures of nature abounded. Odin was also called Allfather, for he was the father of all men and gods. He reigned high on his throne overlooking each of the worlds, and when the impulse struck him, Odin disguised himself and went among the gods and people of the other worlds, seeking to understand their activities. Odin appeared in many forms, but he was often recognized, for he had just one eye, and that eye could see all. Odin had many adventures, and before the war of the gods, before Odin began to prepare for Ragnarok, Asgard was a setting for many of them, as you will see. All of the gods have their stories, and some of the most exciting are recorded here. Odin's throne in Asgard stood not merely as a seat of power, but as a vantage point, from where he watched over the earthly realm and the divine activities of Asgard. Unlike the brawny warriors of legend, Odin's strength lay in his profound wisdom. Perched upon his shoulders were 2 ravens, the embodiment of thought and the essence of memory. These ravens were his link to the world beyond, whispering secrets of the land into his ear. In his hand, he wielded a spear of unbreakable will, crafted by the skilled hands of dwarfs. Upon his finger, he wore a ring symbolizing the unending cycle of life. And at his feet 2 loyal wolves, Jerry and Freki, guardians of his majestic presence, assured success in every hunt. Odin's existence was a tapestry of contrasts, blurring the lines between the living and the ethereal. On the battlefield, he appeared as an enigmatic old man, his presence marked by the company of ravens, wolves, and the Valkyries, the choosers of the slain. guiding the souls of fallen warriors to the grandeur of Valhalla. Valhalla, Odin's majestic palace in Asgard, was a sight to behold. With 500 doors, wide enough for armies to pass, its walls shimmered with polished spears, and its roof, a sea of golden shields, glowed like the sun. Here, the warriors favored by Odin indulged in endless feasts and tested their might in unmatched feats of arms, their wounds healing instantaneously under Valhalla's enchantment. Beside Odin was Frigga, the revered mother goddess, his wife and partner, weaving the fate of the world with her ethereal touch. Frigga, the goddess of the atmosphere, was adored both on Earth and in Asgard, her presence as nurturing as nature itself. In this divine realm, where the passage of time bowed to the wills of the gods, Odin and Frigga raised their children. Among them was Thor, the boisterous god of thunder, with his fiery hair and spirited heart, dwelling in his grand castle. Balder, the fairest and kindest of all, radiated purity, while Hoder, blind yet content, found joy in the simple pleasures of existence. Tyr, the brave god of war, travelled far and wide, his legacy etched into every sword. Guarding Asgard's boundaries was Heimdall, the vigilant watcher, forever alert to the stirrings of enemies. His home, near the Rainbow Bridge, Bifrost, stood as a testament to his eternal vigilance. But even in this golden age, Asgard held its secrets. Loki, a being of trickery and mischief, wove his plots, his nature a stark contrast to the harmonious realm. His kinship with Odin was a matter of debate, but his thirst for chaos was undeniable. Thus, in the heart of Yggdrasil, the world ash, the story of Odin, Frigga, and the pantheon of North gods unfolded. A saga of power, wisdom, and the eternal dance of cosmic forces. Loki was a trickster, a good-looking rascal of a man, whose eyes burned with mischief of the most dangerous kind. His handsome exterior housed a soul that was black and rotten. But for many years he lived happily in Asgard, amusing the gods and causing no real trouble other than that of a clown or a fool. And so he was tolerated there and allowed to marry and have children. Loki was married to Sigyn, and his children were more terrible than him. He already had 3 children by an ogress, one a wolf called Fenris, another a serpent or dragon, Jormungandr, who overtook Midgard as he grew, and the third, a dark but beautiful child called Hel. She was to become the queen of the underworld, and she had control over every man and woman who entered her gates. Now Loki's trickery was well known in Asgard and across the 9 worlds, and his story inextricably linked with that of the other gods, for he involved himself in most events in their lives, offering advice and annoying them. Some of his mischief was amusing, some was dangerous. One evening, when another god, Freya, had become part of Asgard, Loki spied her marvelous necklace, a golden symbol of the fruitlessness of the earth, which she wore about her slender neck at all times. Loki coveted this necklace, and he found he could not sleep until he had it in his possession. So it was that he crept one night into her chamber and bent over as if to remove it. Finding that her position in sleep made this feat impossible, he turned himself into a small flea, and springing under the bedclothes, he bit the lovely goddess so that she turned in her sleep. Loki then returned to his shape and undid the clasp of the necklace, which he removed without arousing Freya. Not far from Freya's palace, Heimdall had heard the sound of Loki becoming a flea, a sound so slight that only the great watchman of the gods could have heard it. And he travelled immediately to the palace to investigate. He saw Loki leaving with the necklace, and soon caught up with him. Drawing his sword in order to remove the thief's head, Loki immediately changed himself into a thin blue flame. But quick as a flash, Heimdall became a cloud and sent down a sheath of rain in order to douse the flame. Loki quickly became a polar bear and opened his jaws to swallow up the water, whereupon Heimdall turned himself into a bear and attacked the hapless trickster. In haste, Loki became a seal, and then once again, Heimdall transformed himself into the same form as Loki, and the two fought for many hours before Heimdall showed his worth and won the necklace from Loki. There is another story told of Loki, whose tricks were not always used to ill effect. One day, a giant and a peasant sat together playing a game. There were bets laid on the outcome of the game, and the giant won. The peasant, having little to offer, had pledged his only son, and the giant promised to return the following day to claim his prize. The peasant returned to his wife and admitted his shameful problem, and together they prayed to Odin, who answered their prayers and came down to earth. He changed the peasant's boy into a tiny grain of wheat and hid it in a sheaf of grain in the center of a large wheat field. But the giant was wiser than Allfather had given him credit for. And when he discovered the boy missing from the peasant's home, he walked straight to the wheat field, located the shaft of wheat, and plucked out the grain, which was the boy. He was just about to eat it when Odin heard the child's cry and returned to earth once again. He snatched the grain from the hand of the giant and transformed the boy to his human form once again. He apologized to the peasants and left them, saying that there was no more he could do for them. The giant roared and shouted that he had been deceived, and he vowed that he would return the following day to claim his prize. Once again, the peasants prayed, this time to Honir, who graciously came to earth and changed the boy into a soft piece of down, which he hid in the breast of a swan, who glided easily across the stream by the peasant's home. It was not long before the giant returned, and he took only a few moments to guess what had happened to the boy. Grasping the swan by the neck, he made as if to bite off its head when Honir heard the boy's cries and returned to earth. He returned the boy to his parents, but then he disappeared, explaining that he had done all he could and could do no more to help. The peasants were in great despair, and the giant promised that he would return the following day to claim his prize. They prayed then to Loki, who came down to them at once, and carrying the boy out to sea and hiding him inside an egg in the roe of a flounder. The giant spied Loki returning from his task, and he guessed at once where the peasant boy was being held. He captured a boat and went at once to the sea with his fishing rod in hand, and soon enough he captured the flounder. The fish was opened and the egg extracted, when suddenly Loki reappeared and plucked the egg from the giant's hand, transforming it once again into the boy, who was sent running home to his parents. Loki set upon the giant then, cutting off his leg and beating him about the head. But the giant had powers of his own, and he was able to heal himself at once, regaining his form and making for the home of the peasants. He was on just the brink of capturing the boy when Loki used a clever ploy. He quickly chopped off the leg of the giant and threw it away so that it could not be rejoined. He he placed a spear of metal where the leg had been, for it was well known that even magic could not cross a metal barrier. The giant was slain at last, and the peasants rejoiced, praising Loki, so that he became inflated with pride. Loki appears many more times in the stories of Asgard, and his name was often on the tongue of its inhabitants. One fine day, Odin, Loki, and Honir wandered throughout the worlds on one of their regular missions, just to see that all was well. And as they travelled, they grew hungry, and they finally stopped in order to cook an ox to give them sustenance to carry on. A fine ox was chosen from a herd in a field, and it was duly slain and placed on a spit over roaring flames. After several hours, the ox was removed from the fire, and the three wanderers licked their lips and they prepared for their meal. Honir cut into the beef and stopped. Under the crisp exterior, the beef was raw through and through. Fresh blood dripped onto the fire. Honir looked puzzled, but he placed the beef back onto the spit and motioned to his friends that they could not eat just yet. The fire was built up once more, and the three men waited for another hour or so before removing the beef from the spit once more. This time, Odin cut into the meat, but again, it was uncooked. It appeared that the fire had no effect whatsoever. Suddenly there was movement in the trees, and the rush of wings. There, at the top of the tree, overlooking their fire, sat a great eagle. He sat looking down at them with great satisfaction. "Our meat is uncooked," Odin said helplessly, pointing to the fire. "The meat will remain uncooked," said the eagle, "until I ordain it to be cooked." The three travelers looked at the eagle with interest. It was not often that gods were challenged, and they waited to hear the reason. "All right then," said Odin fairly. "Please could you allow our meat to cook?" "I shall do so," said the eagle, "if I can eat my fill before you partake from the ox." Odin nodded and agreed, for he was famished by hunger now, and he was determined to have some of this fine piece of ox. Within 5 minutes the beef was cooked, and with a flurry of feathers, the eagle landed by the fire and stirring up a great cloud of ashes, began to eat. Moments later, there was silence. The eagle had returned to the tree, and the spit was empty. Now Loki in particular was enraged by this act. He was accustomed to being the trickster, and was not used to having tricks played on him, whatever the reason. "Who are you?" he called out angrily, to which the eagle only laughed and shrugged. Loki grabbed a burning log from the fire and made towards the eagle, who only ducked and dove at Loki until he was quite reddened with fury. Finally, the eagle swooped down and dug his talons into the log which Loki held, drawing it up into the air as he flew. Loki struggled to let go of the wood, but he was unable to free himself. His fingers clutched the branch, and nothing he could do would loosen them. "Let me down," he cried angrily, kicking his feet and shouting. But the eagle flew higher and higher, turning and soaring through the air and terrifying Loki so that he closed his eyes in fear. When at last the eagle sensed that his prisoner could take no more, he spoke. "I am Thiazi, the great giant. I will let you loose only if you swear to deliver the goddess Ithun to me. You must lure her beyond the walls of Asgard, where I can catch her, and she must bring with her the basket of apples." Loki considered this for a moment, and then agreed. Far below him, Odin and Honir watched, never imagining the treachery of which Loki was capable. In a moment, Loki was set safely on the ground, and for a moment he sat there, stunned. Odin and Honir reached his side and asked him what had passed with the eagle. But Loki told them nothing. The three men returned to Asgard. Loki knew that the promise he had made to Thiazi was the worst he could have possibly made. For without the golden apples of Ithun, the ravages of time would take their toll on the occupants of Asgard, and he, Loki, alone would be responsible for the aging and eventual death of each and every one of them. He paced and paced the gardens where Ithun worked happily, her sweet rays bringing a nuance of spring to all she touched. But as much as Loki realized the trouble he would cause by luring Ithun from Asgard, he knew that there would be much more trouble if he did not satisfy his solemn oath to Thiazi. And so, it was on that fateful day that Loki approached Ithun, who was curled up by a bed of flowers. Ithun smiled innocently at Loki and began to explain how the flowers responded to her love, and how all growing things could benefit from praise and care. Loki smiled briefly and interrupted. "Come, Ethan," he said carelessly. "Did you know that yesterday, when I walked with Odin and Honir, I saw a tree bearing enchanted apples, just like your own?" Ethan laughed. "Why, that's not possible," she said brightly, knowing that her own golden apples were unique. They did not come from any tree, but appeared magically in her basket. When one was eaten, another quickly took its place, so that there was an eternal supply of youth. But Loki talked and talked to Ethan, and he managed to convince her that another source of apples would be a fine thing. For what should transpire if something were to happen to Ethan's basket? "Bring your basket," he said slyly, "and you'll see that the apples are much the same." Ethan finally agreed to travel with Loki to see the tree, and they set out for the walls of Asgard. No sooner had Ethan stepped outside when Thiazi swept down and, clutching her in his talons, carried her away. With her went the basket of apples. Loki skulked back inside the walls of Asgard and mentioned nothing of what had happened. Soon, it was discovered that Ethan was missing, and the gods became greatly distressed. Within a few days, wrinkles appeared on the gods' youthful cheeks, and their backs became hunched with age. They hardly recognized one another, and as the bloom of youth disappeared, so did their happiness. Asgard was a changed place, and everyone called out for the return of Ethan. Heimdall admitted that he had seen her with Loki on the fateful day of her disappearance, and at once Odin and his men set out to find the trickster. Loki admitted what had happened, and the rage of Odin was so great that Loki volunteered to see about the return of Ethan himself. Loki sat alone, deeply concerned by the task that lay ahead of him. For how was he to travel to the skies where Thiazi lived as an eagle? Loki could take many forms when the need arose, but he had not yet mastered the art of flying, and he found himself in a quandary which even his quick wits could not find a way out of. Suddenly, it came to him. Freya's coat. Freya's coat of feathers. Freya agreed at once to the loan of her hawk coat, for she was frightened by the wrinkles, which cut deeply into her face, and without her legendary beauty, she would never be able to attract the souls of the warriors to her domain. And so, Loki set out wearing Freya's coat until he found the giant's castle. There, in a pen, sat Ethan, and she was alone. Thiazi's daughter, Skadi, had been watching the goddess, but because she was so serene and presented no threat of escape, Skadi had gone off for a walk, leaving Ethan to sit quietly, clutching her basket of apples. Loki swooped down and spoke quietly to Ethan. "Ethan, it's me, Loki," he said. "Listen carefully. I am to rescue you. In a moment, you must hold your basket to you, and I will turn you into a hazelnut and lift you into the sky and back to Asgard." Ever trusting, Ethan nodded her head and soon found herself high in the air with Loki the hawk. But just at that moment, Skadi returned, and it took her no time at all to realize what had just happened. She called out to her father, who was fishing several miles away, and he returned at once, rowing like a crazed person in order to reach his daughter. At once, he saw Loki carrying away the nut, and he transformed himself into the giant eagle in order to give chase. Loki was just within reach of the gates of Asgard when the eagle approached. From Asgard the gods watched with horror, and Freya cried out, "My hawk will never outfly an eagle." And so the gods got to work, and they directed Tyr to put together a great pile of wood shavings, which they set alight. Tyr held up the burning shavings, and as the eagle flew across, he touched it to him, and the giant bird burst into flames, his feather coat melting off until the giant fell helplessly to the ground, where he was burnt in a rush of flames. There beside him stood Loki, trembling and frightened, but complete. And there was Ethan, mercifully unharmed by the chase and by the blast of flames. She carefully handed each of the gods an apple, and youth was once more restored. Just as the gods began to settle back into their daily routines, there came a shriek from the walls. There stood Skadi, crying out for her father, who was nothing more than two burning embers. She cried out for vengeance, but Odin approached her and settled her down, pointing out that it had been her father who had begun this unhappy episode. It was finally agreed that Skadi would choose a god as her husband, in order that she would have a man to take care of her. She was to choose the one she wanted by looking at his feet. So, a screen was erected, and each man in Asgard was bidden to walk past the screen so that she could see their feet, choosing those that were the cleanest and purest white. Skadi looked smug, sure that she had picked Balder, for no one else could have such clean white feet. But when the screen was removed, there was Njord, god of sea, whose feet were washed clean on the sands of the ocean each day. And so it was that the girl of the mountains married the god of the sea, and the two came together for all eternity. The Asi's embers were carried to the sky by Loki in Freya's coat, and there they sit today, the twin stars of the Asi, which bear his name and appear each night in the northern skies. Once, in the hall of Volsungs, a wedding took place. This was the wedding of Signy, who was to marry the king of Gothland, called Siggeir. Signy was the twin sister of Sigmund, who supported her marriage along with everyone in the kingdom. In the hall of the Volsungs was an unusual sight. Built into the hall itself was a huge living oak tree whose branches supported the roof. This oak tree was called Branstock, and it brought good luck to the Volsungs, who tended it carefully. On this day, the day of the wedding feast, there were great festivities underway. Great platters